All right, well, we're back on another episode of the Fashion Hive Podcast, and things look a little different. We don't have our green couch with us this season here at Kansas City Fashion Week, but we're super excited to have Truly Yours Event Rentals, who's sponsoring our set for this Fall-Winter 2023 season, as we're based out of Union Station alongside Kansas City Fashion Week. So we're super excited to be back in person with Kansas City Fashion Week, and we'll go ahead and start off down the line. We're going to jump into some maybe hot topics and hot takes, and it'll be a lot of fun, but we'll go ahead and go down the line here and talk, introduce everyone else.
I just say my name, or?
Yeah, just say your name. Just roll with it.
Okay, hey, I'm Skylar. That's all.
I'm Shaley.
And I'm Kelsey.
And you're probably wondering, Kelsey's back on another episode of the Fashion Hive Podcast, and we're super excited. So, Kelsey, thank you for coming back on the podcast, but even more importantly, thank you for becoming part of the team. We're super excited to have Kelsey as part of the team moving forward here, and it's really going to help us a lot with a lot of the things and a lot of the outreach that we're looking to do and how we're looking to grow. So, super excited to have you on the team, Kelsey.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, today, on this episode, we're going to be talking about hot topics and some controversial topics, rather, in the fashion industry. So before we get started, we definitely would like to say, obviously these views, each of ours, may be 100% different, and that's totally fine on some of these topics, but they do not reflect any kind of Kansas City Fashion Week or any other major fashion shows in the nation. They are purely our opinions on this matter. So with that being said, I think let's just go ahead and jump right into topic number one. Is there something you want to say?
Well,
Sorry.
I just wanted to let them know, we asked AI, we went to Chat GPT to create a list of hot takes in the fashion industry. So that's how we got these prompts, and it was a really fun way to kind of use AI and test it out, and ways that it can help us with our podcast.
So we're debating AI today, so that'll be fun. So, yeah, good catch there. So, I mean, Skylar, didn't you do debate in high school?
No.
No, okay. You did golf, though.
Thanks for calling me out.
Okay.
That's a secret.
Oh.
Thank you.
It is a secret?
I mean, I don't exactly make it a thing to tell people. Like, if I'm first meeting you, I'm not going to be like, by the way, I did golf in high school for one season.
Okay, all right. Well, my apologies. So,
I accept
anyways, accepted?
I accept your apology.
Thank you, yeah. Well, here we go. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Sustainability versus fast fashion. I think there's and we see it here even in some of the fashion shows that we go to, the audiences and what the clothes that they wear. Some of it you can 100% tell that it is designer made. And there are a lot of designers out there that upscale and rescale some of these clothing, or some of the pieces of clothing. And then we have fast fashion. We see it all the time. The Sheins, the Temus. My dad's guilty of Temu. Hate it. But yeah, I mean, so what are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, where do you guys fall specifically?
Specifically, I fall into non-fast fashion. Like, I do not order from, the worst companies that use the cheapest labor. Like, I stay away from Shein entirely, and I try to be conscious about what brands I'm shopping at. This skirt I'm wearing today, I thrifted for $1 yesterday from
$1.
Yeah, shout out Arizona Trading Company for all of the $1 thrift finds.
Okay, so for me personally, I have to be honest, I do shop on Shein and stuff. I'm trying to save money, and it's cheap, but I know it's not good. My sister is on my head about it. She's big, no shopping on Shein, no fast fashion websites, and I still tend to do it. I try to stay away from it, but I end up there a few times. But yeah, my outfit tonight, also got it at the same place as Shaley's skirt. So I do like to shop at Goodwill sometimes, Plato's Closet. I don't know, I can't think of other places off the top of my head, because you can find good quality stuff for a good price too. So I go back and forth. The thing with Shein though, that stuff, it's trending. Whereas if you go to a thrift store or something, it could be older, a little outdated, but I don't know, it's hit or miss sometimes with either one.
And before we hear Kelsey jump into this, can we go your outfit that you had for Kansas City Fashion Week's garden party? Walk us through that. What was that?
So I found it in my mom's closet first off. So
Go check out Skylar's Instagram for that. Is it on your Insta?
No.
No. Okay. Then don't. Go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
I found that in my mom's closet, and she got, I don't know what store specifically she got it from. I'd have to ask her, but it was a shop in Kansas City, I know, that sells like vintage clothing. So it was a dress from 1971, and it's beautiful. I got so many compliments on it. I wasn't expecting to get that many, and I was able to tell everyone, yeah, it's a vintage dress from 1971. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. Like, I don't even have words. It was really pretty. And it's sustainable.
That's so cool. I love that.
I'm kind of on the same page as Skylar. I'm in between. I'm very aware about, how it can negatively impact the world being like a fashion student. It contributes to so much waste, so that scares me for sure. So I try to stay away from fast fashion, but I find myself buying it because it does hit all of the trends. It's what's cool to wear. I try to thrift, and if I am buying fast fashion, I'm like, can I get rid of my clothes, give them to somebody else? So that way I'm not just throwing them out, or can I donate my clothes if I am getting new clothes? That's always something I try to keep in mind as well.
See, I'm a sucker for like savers and the Goodwill. Like, I'll spend Saturdays just like thrifting, like garage sales, stuff like that. Like, I'm out and about.
My favorite pair of jeans that I have, I got at Goodwill for $10, and I wear them all the time. Like, they fit perfect. They were a perfect price, and like, I don't know, I've had them for like a year or two now, and they're still in really good condition, and they're my favorite thing ever. Better than anything I could get on Shein or something.
Right.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, my favorite thing to wear ever is just graphic t-shirts. All my favorite graphic tees are from thrift stores. I feel like they're better quality. They've held up for years, and they're just kind of thicker too, so I find myself wearing those the most. My dad, he used to ride like Harleys, so I have all of his old like vintage Harley t-shirts, so I'm always just living in those at home.
That is sick.
I love them. They're really cool. They're unique too.
I mean, not to like throw shade at any specific brands, but like Gildan shirts, like those have to go. Like, they shrink in the dryer, they're wrinkly messes. Like, then there's these vintage shirts that are like made by like ABC T-shirt company, you know? And it's like, these suckers are like 80 years old, or, you know, some of these shirts, like, they went through Woodstock. Like, people were out here rolling in the woods or rolling down hills, stoned out of their mind, listening to Jimi Hendrix. And now we got Kelsey and Skylar out here wearing shirts, vintage shirts that survived Woodstock, you know?
Yes.
And like, you get a Gildan shirt and you're like, this didn't even survive the event. Like, I was outside too long, and this shit's like just shrunk. That's what happened. It shrunk. So like, Gildan has got to go. I have beef with Gildan. I'm just saying. Gildan, come after me. I don't care. I have beef with Gildan.
On the subject of fast fashion, like, I feel like there's certain brands that come to mind, specifically like Shein, Zaful, Temu. Yeah, there's a bunch that like we think of, but I feel like that it's so many more brands that we don't think of. So like, even though I say like I don't contribute to fast fashion because I avoid like a few brands, like I definitely am aware that other brands are just better at hiding the fact that they use cheap labor than others.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the shoe companies, the Nikes, the Adidas, like, I mean, I personally boycott Nike for that reason. Like, I refuse to wear Nike stuff just because of their labor situation. Like, and again, that's my take though. And you know, at the end of the day, a lot of this, you know, sustainability, fast fashion, it's going to be driven by the consumer, right? You know,
Always.
It's always going to be driven by the consumer. And realistically, me boycotting Nike is not doing anything, because I've been boycotting them since like 2015, and they're still around. It's 2023 and they're still around. They're still moving.
Yeah.
They don't care. They're signing athletes to multi-million-dollar sponsorship deals.
Yeah.
I'm a nobody. I get it. I know. So.
No, I mean, purchase power is the power you have when it comes to brands. They're not going to listen to you any other way than your wallet.
Yeah.
So if you used to be, like, they can monitor trends a lot better nowadays. So, like, I think, like, I support, like, boycotting brands. Some people say it doesn't matter and that, you know, but I think it does matter. I feel like, personally, like, I don't like giving my money to brands that I morally don't agree with.
So, I mean, I think that brings us along to our next topic. I mean, unless you guys had anything else, I mean, when talking about brands and how they kind of maneuver with the cheap labor and their branding, I mean, at what point, you know, when they're catering towards specific people or catering towards a specific heritage, is it cultural appropriation rather than cultural appreciation? And maybe not even with the major brands, but I mean, we see it with the runway, for example. I mean, as we're talking about it, the Wednesday night show of Kansas City Fashion Week featured several different designers that they were paying homage to their heritage. So no one really questioned them, right? And that's, I mean, that's fine.
Right.
But let's talk about when someone jumps in and, like, Nike, for example, and let's maybe not keep bashing one over the head, but a brand were to come out with a Hispanic line, or even like the LGBTQ, where, like, Target, for example, sure, they carry it throughout the year, but they make it a point during that month of Pride Month. Like, I feel like that's almost, I feel like it's a slap in the face. Like, you're just doing this to make money. You want my bag. That's what you want.
Right. But isn't the purpose of any store to make money?
I agree.
I get what you're saying about the pride thing. Like, I know a lot of brands, even ones that don't sell products, like maybe like food chains and stuff. Like, they show their support during Pride Month. And I found a lot of people are unhappy with that. But personally, as part of the LGBT community, I
just rolled off the tongue. I mean,
yeah.
it just rolled off the tongue.
Yeah. I love all the support during Pride Month, like, but I'm like a Pride girly. I've been going, like, for the past decade. I will buy anything with a rainbow on it. So I like to have, like, all the options at Target, because Target has cuter options than other places. So that's, you know, like, as a consumer, you know, my purchase power is going towards that. So I understand why they sell a lot more Pride things during Pride Month.
But do you think, I mean, so again, going along the lines of, like, even if we're talking African American heritage, Hispanic heritage, I mean, even, like, we see some of these, like, Italian festivals that pop up across Kansas City, and I know Omaha had one a couple weeks ago, you know, where they're selling it with the, you know, Italy's, you know, flag colors on it. Like, to a certain extent, I feel like that's cultural approach. And I'm not even one that's going to jump on that, right? Like, oh, look, they're just, you know, because cultural appropriation, is it mockery? You know, I think that's what, is it mockery of that heritage? You know, is it mockery of what those people, who they are and what they've stood for decades, you know, thousands, hundreds of years, depending on what we're talking about? Like, I just feel like, to a certain extent, brands need to hop off of that. And that's just me, though.
No, I agree for sure. And anybody else jump in too. But I think it's usually done with, like, ignorance, you know, like, I feel like it's not, like, intentional, like, oh, sometimes it is, but, like, I feel like usually it's not like, oh, I'm going to steal this and you know, but I feel like it's like the lack of recognition for what they're doing and, like, the impact that it is. I feel like I don't know how some brands are still not getting it, but, like, I feel like people aren't getting it. It is, like, it's a confusing topic, but I feel like a lot of people just don't get it.
Yeah, it all like depends where you're coming from. I'm all for, like, empowering people in different groups. Like, educate me, tell me what you guys are learning in or what you have going on in your culture. Like, I want to know. I think it's cool to learn about those different types of things, especially in the fashion world. Like, how are you doing it different than I would? I just like seeing that type of stuff.
I like how you said educate. Like, that's a huge component of it. You know, and again, here I'm just throwing, like, flames all over the place, but everyone's catching strays on this episode, but like even like Arrowhead Stadium, like they banned where people could not wear headdresses or face paint as a chief into the stadium because they didn't want people. And now even when they do the tomahawk chop, they'll say, the tomahawk chop signifies this within the indigenous people's culture.
Yeah, and most news stations won't broadcast when the crowd is doing the tomahawk chop because I feel like over time they've tried to get fans to stop doing it, but they won't because it's just like rooted in the blood of Kansas City now somehow. But yeah, I personally do not participate in the tomahawk chop because I've been told that it is offensive and not okay to do, so I personally don't do it, but most people do.
I think that to a certain extent, and maybe this is a good question overall, I mean, not to put you guys all on the spot, but like with fashion shows, what do you think their steps should be to protect cultures? Say, for example, and again, this is kind of, say that, for example, that there's a Caucasian designer who wants to put forth a Hispanic heritage or African American heritage or indigenous people heritage collection. I mean, do you think that there's parameters that should be met, like that there is an education component? Because to a certain extent, I mean, I feel like it's the same thing like blackface. You're not having white models go back there and have blackface put on so they can walk down the runway. To me, that's no different. You're not putting them in. I don't know. I guess that's my question. Is like, do you guys think that the fashion show or fashion shows, not Kansas City Fashion Week, but overall, we're talking Milan, New York, Omaha, like all of these places, like, should there be parameters for that?
I think it goes back to education. You have to look back at history and see what is correct and what is not. You're not making up a new trend and saying it fits in whatever box you're trying to show, I guess.
Sorry, I don't feel like I understand like enough of the difference between appropriation and appreciation. Like, I understand it, but the line between the two is so blurred to me.
I agree.
That I feel like it's hard for me to speak on it. That's why I've been like so in my thoughts of what could I say, because it's so hard to tell what the difference is between the two.
Right. I'll create like a hypothetical scenario, which I'm sure is not really hypothetical. I'm sure it's happened several times. But say like a designer finds like a certain print, like a style, a design of fabric that's really popular in one specific country, and they're like, wow, like that's a cool print, I want to do a collection inspired by that. And it's like this traditional like print like to this country. Is that appreciation or appropriation? I feel like that specifically borders appropriation closer than appreciation. But I don't know, what do you guys think?
I agree. Like, again, the line between the two is blurred, but I completely agree that it goes probably towards more of appropriation. But I don't know for sure.
Yeah. I feel like, you can't be, why not just be on the safe side? Like, err on the side of caution. Like, if you're using something that is specific to a culture, just, I don't know.
But it's hard on a runway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is hard.
Like, because you have 5-10 minutes maybe of FaceTime with the audience. And unless your audio during that show is explaining what the pieces are and why they are that way, you're not educating. Like,
No.
and again, you could have all the best intentions in the world, right? But if education is the biggest component, or advocacy, maybe the other component of that is advocacy. This is why I did it, and if you buy this, a portion of, like Nita Lou, handmade, based out of Lawrence, Kansas, that's what she does. Mm-hmm. Her proceeds from her cloths, or her fabrics rather, that come from Turkey, proceeds go back to Turkey. That money goes back into Turkey. So the advocacy component, being an advocate for somewhere around the world that you're getting that from, might be it. But again, if you don't tell that story.
And I feel like you should partner with somebody you should have someone on your team that is actually knowledgeable and part of that culture to be like an advisor of sorts on like how to do things properly, so that you're not disrespecting any cultures by doing something like wrong, you know, like say you're putting models like in kimonos or something down the runway. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I think ultimately we all kind of agree that like you should just err on the side of caution and not use things that are very specific to cultures that are not your own.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think the other component, I mean, and to segue into the third point here with Chat GPT and AI would be what it looks like when we're, you know, the advocacy component and what we're looking for when we're casting, both for designers and for models, is the body styles and differences of individuals, right? So what we have runway shows across the nation that look specifically for certain size models, certain looks of models, and then we have, you know, a perfect example is Kansas City Fashion Week, that they have a wide variety, a huge diversity of size, ethnicity, and genders here within Kansas City Fashion Week, that I think that's a huge difference. So what would you guys say specifically when we're talking about body positivity and then unrealistic beauty standards? I mean, like, you guys have much more face time with the models of the runway shows. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on those specific conformities of other runway shows?
I don't know. The silence. We're all just like, I feel like that's a really tricky one. Like, it's hard to really, I feel like our experience is kind of limited, maybe. Like, we haven't gotten to really immerse ourselves in some other environments to really truly compare it to. But I don't know. For me, I would say that, like, I'm really proud of Kansas City Fashion Week and how well that we do I don't know. I just think we are really good at inclusivity here, and
I agree.
And there are others that aren't, and a lot of times that comes down to the designer themselves. You know, designers ultimately are always responsible for choosing their own models. So I feel like that goes to show the types of designers we have here in Kansas City. You know, it really reflects the culture and the character here. I feel like when you get into your bigger cities, it gets a lot more exclusive, and people kind of, I feel like the culture is just a lot different there when it comes to that.
I feel like, so once I really started to get involved in Kansas City Fashion Week is when the body positivity and inclusivity, like, I started to really see it, because beforehand, like, when I would think of models, I would think of, like, as skinny and tall as you could be. And I think that has a lot to do with, like, America's Next Top Model, or, like, the type of post you would see on Instagram. And then once I came here, that's really when I was able to get a visual of, it's a really wide variety and range of what a model can be. And again, it has a lot to do with the designer and what they want. And again, Kansas City, I think the designers that come here also have a good idea of that and having that variety here.
Yeah, I think it's still like a growing thing. In Kansas City, I do think they have done a really great job being more inclusive. You think of like other brands like Kim Kardashian's line for Skims, like the models, all different like shapes and sizes to show like undergarments. Like, I think that's really amazing. Like, she does a really good job of doing that. And I just think other people are growing to be more like that. Again, not everybody's in that same boat yet, but as the years go on, I just see more inclusivity just around.
It gives me a lot of hope, you know, like like we can physically see how fast things are moving in the right direction just since we were kids, and like I was reading like Tiger Beat magazine or something, and like reading about like, oh, this celebrity gained 5 pounds, how dare they? You know, you never see stuff like that anymore. At least maybe besides like Instagram comments, you know, stay away from those are bad.
Yeah.
But
So, I mean, I guess it brings me to another question that I have, like, you know, Lizzo, for example, catches a lot of strays for being a champion of true body positivity. And then I hear the other side of it is like, you know, you're not walking up to, and I say this, you're not walking up to someone and you're like, that's giving Lizzo vibes. You're not. Because are you calling them heavier? And again, like, I don't walk up to people and say that, but like, people will walk up and say like, that's giving smaller, you know, whatever, insert smaller model, skinnier celebrity vibes. They say that. They don't say that with Lizzo. Is that an issue? I mean,
I've never really thought about that kind of specific instance, but yeah, that definitely has a lot of like subconscious bias attached to it, you know, like now I think about it, like, no, you don't want to, like, when I'm talking to somebody, you know, like, I don't want to compare them to someone who's bigger because it might offend them, but I don't know, like, it's like, is it more offensive to them or is it more offensive to Lizzo? Yeah. I guess, like,
to the comparison.
Yeah, I get, like, I don't like that. So yeah, like, I don't know. Would you guys like tell someone? Like, I don't know.
Sorry. I don't know, 'cause I feel like it could be taken the wrong way.
Right.
You
Like, I
know?
feel like it would be by some people, you know, not by others, but
Yeah.
but like people are just really touchy about their weight and their size and their shape a lot of times still. Even if, you know, we promote body positivity, that doesn't mean that every person is positive about their own body.
Yeah.
So,
Like, yeah, you could say, like, something comparing someone to Lizzo in a positive way, but they might not take it that way. Like, say they wanted to lose weight or something, and you say that to them in a positive stance, they might not take it that way.
yeah.
I mean, I think of it from a perspective, so like, we'll put it on me so that way I'm not potentially upsetting anyone, is like, I would be pissed if someone walked up to me and was like, you look like that Mexican comedian. That, you know, the big Mexican, like, I'm pissed. What? But like, if you walked up and you're like, oh shit, you're giving George Lopez vibes, like, that's a different story. Like, I'm like, I'm a vato, I look cool, you know what I mean? Like, I get it, right? But like, if someone walks up to me like, hey, Mr. Iglesias, someone asked me about the Fashion Hive, where can I direct them? Like, I'm pissed. Like, no, don't call me Mr. Like, that's not happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, I think that component of it is like, yes, to your point, everyone's different in their body. Everyone's different in their stage of life, of where they are. But I think the other component to it is like, at what point then does that cross into our fourth bullet point of like gender fluidity when it comes to clothing, right? If a male is in a dress, how do you walk up and how do you address them, right?
I'd say slay.
Okay, right, but like, again, that's the same thing, right? Like, I think I feel that it's one of those things of like, guys, and it happens at runway shows. Individuals show up in dresses of both genders, or you know, of wherever they are in their moment and where they are with their body and their journey. But I think there's a component to it. Like, a lot of people don't understand when you see a more feminine look on a more masculine body walking down the runway. I mean, is that an issue? And that's not a Kansas City thing. That's a world thing. And so we talked about the evolution of body positivity. Where are we at now with
like gender positivity?
Gender positivity.
I think because, like, there's been celebrities, like celebrity males who have worn dresses, like Harry Styles, I think Kid Cudi, like, they've worn dresses, and the response that they got in return to wearing those it's been like half and half, but I feel majority has been more on the negative half, at least that has been seen. Like, people are against it. And I personally don't understand why. Like, if you want to wear a dress, you rock that dress. Like, period. You're slaying.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people are so opinionated and, like, don't understand. Like, a lot of people are just don't understand what is going on, and they need to be more open-minded about it, you know, if that makes sense. I'm not telling people, like, you need to be open-minded, but you definitely should be, because babes, come on, it's 2023.
We highly recommend.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 recommend.
It's really great.
Open-mindedness. I mean, I don't know why anyone gives a shit about what anyone else is wearing unless the outfit is ugly. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But what defines ugly? Because your ugly is different than my ugly. And I mean that. Like,
No,
I mean,
you're
like,
That's true.
You're right. And that's why, like, fashion is an art. Everybody's opinions are going to be different. So what I think is cute, a lot of people think is ugly because I wear, like, hot pink every single day of my life. And some people think hot pink is the ugliest color in the world. And that's fine, you know? I'm still wear it. I don't care. And I hope that anybody who wants to wear any clothes they want is also not fazed by what other people are going to think, because whatever you wear, some people are going to like it and some people are going to hate it.
Yeah, and that's what like makes it fashion. Like, we're not all going to have the same styles, which is good because we're all going to be unique and different to ourselves. When I think like gender like neutral clothing, I definitely think streetwear, because I feel like lots of like brands will have like sweatpants, sweatshirts for like both, because they'll fit both and like the style fits for both people too. So I feel like that's what I think whenever I think more gender neutral. I think that's becoming more of a thing too, that it's just more, you see it.
Yeah. And you see a lot more often women dressing in masculine styles than men dressing in feminine styles, you know. It was kind of like I feel like it slowly, you know, obviously for a long time it was not okay for women to wear men's styles, and like they had to fight tooth and nail to be accepted wearing pants. And so now the opposite is happening, and yeah, like it's just so hard to get society to see something as silly as clothing as acceptable.
well, and I think the other component is a lot of this, and the way we're driven is from the very beginning. You know, it was, this is the relationship, or this is the way men were, this is the way females were, and that's just been a cornerstone of, as I disappear off the mic, this has been a cornerstone of, you know, how it's always been. It's always been that, you know, I mean, look at the 1970s at like swimsuit photos. The guys are not overweight, medically overweight, right? I'm not going to say that someone's overweight. Medically, there is at a certain point that you're overweight. And then the same thing with the females. The 1970s, the females were not medically overweight, right? And that has changed. The body positivity, the body image, the body comfortableness, confidence, all of that has changed. And I think the only reason why this, gender-wise, I think the only reason why it's still coming around is I think it was just it showed up to the show later on.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that even necessarily, because I feel like drag's been around for a really long time. So I think this fight has just been going on a lot longer than we see. It has more recently come into like everyday discussion, but I think for a long time it was really shoved down and like tried to like tuck it into all the corners, and society tried to really like just turn it away and shut it down immediately.
But I hear what you're saying, but I think that and why I believe it's this way is because like Prince, Freddie Mercury, Elton John, like those individuals 100% in 2023, if they were still alive, Elton John still is, but that they 100% would have no issue going out and wearing a dress onto a show, onto a stage.
Right.
we didn't see that at their prime.
Right. 'Cause
They wore feminine colors and maybe a little bit more feminine cuts, but they weren't going out there wearing dresses that I think like the Greta Van Fleets where they're wearing longer, flowier clothes. I just think that has changed within even the last decade.
Yeah.
That's why I say it that way.
Right. And I think that has a lot to do with the intersectionality of being homosexual at that time too, because
True.
they were battling to keep their careers based on solely trying to be as straight passing as possible. Obviously they didn't try the hardest that they had to, but still, like, you know, not openly admitting to being gay and that kind of thing for, you know, certain individuals, not all of them, but yeah, I think, you know, it's when you can't come out as gay, then you hell no can you wear a skirt or
Right.
a dress on stage at that time, you know, at that time period.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so one of the topics that we heard within one of the topics that kind of came up with one of the designers that showed this year, and we'll have her on hopefully at some point, we'll see, during Kansas City Fashion Week this season, was a fur designer. And it goes back and forth, and we're not, you know, I'm keeping the name out simply based off the fact that this segment of this episode is not a reflection by any means of her brand. Mm-hmm. This is the overall topic of animal cruelty and the use of furs. I mean, what is your guys' stance on that? Are you guys, and I'm going to put you guys on are you a real or faux fur kind of person? One. And two, do you see that changing?
Okay, here's where I am at. When I'm shopping at stores, like, I never buy real fur, but I will thrift it. It's already been created, and there truly is something beautiful about fur. I mean, obviously, because there's so many faux furs to try to replicate the look of real fur, because it is a really cool and luxurious look. And I do own some fur items, but they are thrifted items that are like more vintage. You can find a lot of really cool fur coats like in thrift stores, so I highly recommend thrifting them. But you don't see a lot of designers anymore promoting fur use. You don't see a lot of anybody promoting fur use, because I feel like the majority of people will say that they're against it. I feel like there might be a lot of people that say they're against it, like just for imaging purposes, but actually aren't. Like you know, a lot of celebrities. I'm not going to name any in particular, but yeah, I think, you know, people try to like hide their takes on this subject.
Yeah.
I personally, it's not something I ever think about when I'm shopping, like, oh, is this real fur or is it fake? Like, it's not something I ever think about. I feel like I don't really have a large opinion on it. If it's real, it's real. If it's not, it's not. That's just how I go about it.
The deed's done.
Like,
I mean,
exactly. Like, it's not like if I don't buy real fur, it's gonna suddenly bring the animal back to life or something, or put the fur back on them. It's said and done. Like, if I buy it, I buy it. Sorry. That's probably terrible, but I don't, like, there's jackets that my mom has from her grandparents in her house that are real fur, and they're beautiful, like these big fur jackets, and I love them. I feel like fake fur, it looks like it can be so real that, like, you really can't even tell the difference half the time, but I appreciate a good real fur too. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I get the appeal. There's something different, and I kind of want to almost not fully retract what I said earlier, but I was thinking about it deeper. And just because I'm not buying, you know, fur right off the rack, I am buying other leather goods. You know, like purses are all leather, shoes a lot are leather. I have leather jackets, and leather you see really common, and I have more fake leather items than real leather items, but you know, like that's something that's talked about way less than fur.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of forget that leather can be in that category as well. I feel like at stores and stuff, you'll see more of the fake leather. It has that like feel to it, and you just kind of know. I'm thinking of like my closet, and I'm just like, I don't even know if I have like anything fur like in there. So I would say I personally just haven't gone the real fur route. So I don't really have much to say on it, I guess.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it a bit when you were talking about it earlier too, but like I wouldn't be able to afford like a new fur anything if I wanted to. Like even thrifting ones are like a thrifted fur coat will still be over $100 because of the, you know, the rarity of it.
Yeah, like knowing it's real in a way kind of like freaks me out, because I'm just like, oh, I'm wearing an animal. So like I probably would stray away from it. When I think fur, sometimes I think like fuzzy too, but I know that's not necessarily in the same category, but I have like lots of fuzzy things.
See, like when I'm thinking fur, like I don't know why, I just keep like jumping back. Like I'm like, Davy Crockett rocked a raccoon hat back in the day.
I'm
like
thinking
that,
of Macklemore.
like that dude died in the Alamo. We had people dying in the Alamo down in Texas with raccoon hats on.
Right.
And like I'm not being found dead in a raccoon hat. It's just not happening. Like that's your rallying cry is like, remember the Alamo and I was found dead in a raccoon hat. But not happening. Like I'm good. So like for me, I just and you know, Shaley and I, we were talking about this the other day. Like men's clothing doesn't have that, and like doesn't have a wider variety of options. I think that, you know, the closest that for most men, comfortability wise, professionally, just common use of that piece of clothing, it is the leather. It's the boots. It's the, you know, a lot of that I think that's where men kind of get into the animal cruelty, or not even the animal cruelty, but the use of animal products within their fashion, and they don't think about it.
They just want that Mojo Dojo Casa House vibe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like they want to show up in some like snakeskin boots and be like, I've arrived. Howdy, partner. And like, no, like, first of all, get your reptilian shoes off of my table, one. And two, no one gives two craps that you have authentic New Mexico rattlesnake skin boots.
But
Do you care?
But they might look cool.
They might look cool, but like, you know, I don't know. I'm just not about it. I'm not about it, especially if they have like the little rattle at, like in the back instead of the, like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm passing.
Honestly, I feel like I'm picturing it. I'm envisioning the boots, and I feel like it's giving camp.
Yeah, I just, I'm good.
Okay, yeah.
I'm passing.
I would make fun of you if you were wearing them, actually, but like,
yeah, well, considering
a more stylish person could pull them off.
Yeah, well, considering earlier you said something about something being someone's clothes being ugly, that was very, very upsetting to hear you say that. So.
Yeah, I have opinions, you know. I like to share them from time to time.
Oh goodness. Well, we've gotten to the point in the episode where it's kind of maxed out our time, so we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up, and maybe if you guys like this episode, we could do a part 2 of debating Chat GPT topics with AI. But again, super thankful to be back here again in Kansas City Fashion Week, Union Station, for its 23rd season. So shout out to Kansas City Fashion Week. And super excited to be back and partners with them, partners with Union Station, Oak Park Mall, and again, huge shout out to Truly Yours event rentals for their use of the set this season. And we're super excited to get a lot more recording done. So I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we'll have quite a bit of content for you guys to be pushing out in the next couple of weeks. So you guys have anything else before we sign off?
I just wanted to thank Kelsey again for joining our team. We're happy to have you here, and always good to have Skylar on the episodes as well. It's always nice to have a few more voices, a few more opinions. But before we close this one off, let's all share our social media.
Okay, you can follow me on Instagram at SkyLauts, and it's SkyLautzhiser. LAUTZ. Thank you.
My Instagram is at Shaley Harper, which is SHALEYHARPER.
My Instagram is just Kelsey Chop, and that is KELSEYCHOP.
And then mine is Reverend_Sants, Reverend common spelling _SANTZ. And then follow us on Instagram at Fashion Hive Podcast. So
Yes.
again, thank you for tuning in to another wonderful episode. It's always a wonderful time to sit down and debate it out and get told about how not fashionable I am. But at the end of the day, I leave it to the professionals to mock me. So thank you again, everyone.
Make sure to like this video and subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you're watching, and we will see you on the next one.
We out.